All right, y'all, welcome into the Ringerverse. We are back from San Diego Comic-Con. One of the first people that we interviewed was Dr. Ryan Linkof. He is heading up the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art right here in LA. You might have seen some of this, but if you haven't, this museum is incredible. Not only does it show you some rare props and art and material from Lucasfilm and Star Wars, but this is a collection that Lucas has been curating for years. And we get into with Ryan what is narrative art, why this is one of the first museums that is really taking a look into the art of advertising, comic books, manga, cave paintings. Ryan was an amazing guest. So yeah, we were super excited, and hopefully, yeah, you get to see the Midnight Boys go into the museum. Thanks.
This episode of The Ringerverse is presented by Searchlight Pictures. More than ever, America needs a laugh. Enter Super Troopers to the rescue. The cult comedy classic returns with the most offensive installment yet, with Super Troopers 3. A debaucherous bachelor party, an over-the-top wedding, and a dangerous drug smuggling ring all threaten the troops' future. Fill your liter of cola and roll up to the multiplex for Super Troopers 3. Meow playing only in theaters. Get tickets. Meow.
All right, yo, the Midnight Boys are joined by Dr. I just learned Dr. Ryan Linkof. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really great. Thanks for having me.
Yo, for the people who don't know, what do you do? What's your official title?
I'm senior curator and head of film programs at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art.
All right, so before you got here, we were arguing over what narrative art means, and I've done my research. It seems like, people argue about it. So what does narrative art mean? And in terms of the museum, what are you guys trying to do?
I'm curious about your definition, but I'll give you mine, and then we can compare.
Okay.
For me, narrative art is about storytelling, right? And while all art has a story, and that's true of really any kind of art, figurative or not, that there's certain art that is really about stories, and that is narrative art, right? Art that really translates words into images. Okay. And while all art is kind of, rich with meaning, not all art is really kind of meant to convey stories in that way. So the museum is really dedicated to that kind of art.
Oh, so we see in the title then Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. Have you met the man? What was the first time like?
I actually interviewed for the job in March of 2018, and I met him then. So that was part of my interview process.
What was it like?
It was, I would say, it's certainly an intimidating prospect, but he is a very approachable person, and it was immediately easy. We had a nice conversation. This was at Skywalker Ranch. It was a big moment, but it just started a conversation that's now 8 years deep.
So George Lucas obviously is the architect of one of the most deep and fundamental lores to nerds like myself, right? Yeah. So you expect a Lucas Museum to be focused on Star Wars or Indiana Jones or any other things that people swear by. What was the decision to make this about story, narrative art, expand beyond what people associate with the Lucas name?
Yeah, so this is a museum of visual storytelling. So that's everything for us from prehistoric cave painting to contemporary comics. And George has often used this term, the people's art, to describe the kinds of art that people will see, and it really be a kind of home for book and magazine illustration, comic art, children's book illustration, poster art, film. So Star Wars is part of that ecosystem. And really what matters at this museum, as I was saying, is that these objects are rooted in storytelling. So what's really nice is that it kind of levels the playing field. This kind of puts all kinds of different art forms in the same plane, as long as they're engaged with and telling us stories. And as someone who is himself a storyteller and an artist, it's just a really amazing thing to be a part of a project that is led by him.
What's your favorite piece in the collection, and then what's your favorite Star Wars piece in the collection?
Oh my God. So yeah, that's a great, I get this question a lot, and I should probably have a better answer, but I have spent so much time with this collection that it's really hard to choose. We have 1,300 artworks on view. There's tens of thousands of artworks in the collection, so it's really, really hard. But I would say for me, one of the things that I kind of often return to are the fantasy paintings by Frank Frazetta, Boris Vallejo, Julie Bell, and others from the kind of 60s through the 80s. I grew up with a lot of kind of sword and sorcery stuff, so for me, they just really resonate. They're beautiful paintings that are technically perfect. They're really, really gorgeous to look at. They're these large-scale oil paintings that were made for trading cards, for paperback books. So to see them in person is just really, really impressive. In terms of Star Wars stuff, there are so many things. We have over about 100,000 objects that are in the Lucasfilm Production Archive that has been gifted to the museum. And it is immense.
How do you curate a museum that is about the history of story? Human story is such an infinite thing. Almost everything about our lives are story. If you're curating fine art and stuff like that, you go pick a bunch of things. But like, how do you?
They start with. I heard you start with cave paintings.
What's the process of like curating a museum about story itself?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, so one, we're also a museum with a collection that's building on the history of collecting.
Certainly.
So George Lucas is a collector. He's been collecting.
Some of this stuff is his.
So yes, so the seed kind of collection of the museum are things that George has been collecting since the 1970s. The museum has also been collecting on its own in conversation with him. Everything we buy, everything we propose, he'll have seen and approved. So we kind of are fitting within a pre-established kind of set of collection categories that were already there and expanding upon that. So that in some ways does determine some of the exhibition. So that's why we have a comics art presentation and children's books, and why we have emphasis on Norman Rockwell and others. These are areas that George has been collecting in for many years. But we do also, as you mentioned, cave paintings, have a presentation that really kind of connects different cultures around the world around these shared stories that really reaches deep, deep into human history, from the earliest forms of human representation in cave paintings through, ancient artworks and European paintings and all kinds of other things, to really show that this is a tradition that reaches back into the earliest moments in human history.
Was it important when you, George, were thinking of this museum where it feels like this is a museum of the people? It's not just like the highest of high art. It's every single type.
I think that's what's so exciting, and why I think it's really important and really fun to be at Comic-Con, honestly. I feel like this is an audience that implicitly gets it. Everything at Comic-Con in some ways is a form of narrative art. This is a conference that's really dedicated to storytelling. And so, yes, I think what's really exciting about it is that it is for everyone. If you're an avid art museum goer, there's going to be something there for you. If you're someone who's a film buff, there's something there for you. If you love comics, there's something there for you. If you just want to go and hang out at a park, you can do that, because we have a really beautiful park that will have sculptures installed. So there's so much to see. So the variety prevents that, but also because I think what really matters to George and Melody is that this museum is accessible, that the artwork itself is accessible and familiar, but the space is also accessible. So I think, yes, it's a museum for everyone.
What have you learned about us, about the nature of who we are, about human beings, through exploring this very fundamental part of who we are?
Yeah. So another thing that I feel like I've learned from George is this: he's often used this term myth, which it actually took me kind of a long time to really fully understand how he was using it and why that mattered so much to the history of narrative art. But it's really been helpful for me, and it's something that I've learned, that stories are really fundamentally about myth. We sometimes think of myth as, Thor and ancient lore and things like that, but it's also the kind of mundane aspects of everyday life. Family has its own mythology associated with it. Love has its own mythology associated with it. And those mythologies are because of the stories we've been told, the images that we've seen. And so for me, kind of thinking about the world in a different way, that we kind of really understand the world through stories, is just something I truly had not quite thought about in the way that I had until the last few years. But yeah.
Favorite Star Wars film, and did you tell Lucas to his face?
Yeah, that is really hard. That's not fair. Honestly, I mean, I think everyone says it, and it's probably boring, but certainly Empire is just something that's hard to resist.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Does Lucas want to talk about it, or he's like, bro, I've had this conversation a million times?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't ask him which one his favorite is, but we talk about Star Wars all the time because it's part of what the museum does. So
yeah. So, I was on SC's campus, and I saw the museum. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Like, look at this building.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You're not an architect, are you? But can you talk for a second about just the arresting visual look of the museum itself? There's this kind of, it almost hums like when you see it.
Yeah.
How does that correlate with what's going to be inside of it?
It is a truly astounding piece of architecture. It really is. And especially when you're kind of inside of it on the campus. It's just a really unique form of architecture, this series of undulating organic forms that's really unlike anything I've ever seen. The plaza level has these two parts of the museum coming together with an oculus where the light kind of shines through. It's just a very special space. I think for me, one way that I've often thought about it is that the building's kind of organic structure really has no kind of beginning and end. It's actually somewhat in the shape of an infinity symbol. I don't think this was intentional, but I think this idea of a kind of a path that doesn't have a specific line is really important to us, that you can experience this museum in any way. You could start somewhere and end somewhere. We're not really telling you where to go. And I think maybe there is some correlation between that free-flowing architectural style and the experience you'll have there.
So also 2 theaters in the museum. Can you talk about like programming? What are y'all showing? Obviously the Odyssey is out. People want the good screens.
Yeah, this is really exciting. We're going to announce elements of our film program at the Comic-Con panel later this evening. And it's really exciting. We have 2 theaters at the museum. They are beautiful, state-of-the-art, fully digital theaters. There's 1 theater with 35 millimeter capacity, which is really exciting. In my early conversations with George about the film program, I realized this is going to be very different. There's not really any film program like it. The idea is that there's a continuous stream of programming all day long in both theaters. So you can kind of come and go when you'd like. You can stay for as long, as little as you'd like. We'll have a pre-circulated program so you can see certain things, or you could just happen in there and see something by accident. And it covers really everything from the earliest cinema experiments to animation, documentaries, avant-garde and experimental. It is a really, really unique program. You'll see things there that you won't see anywhere else. And that's kind of a common theme across the museum. But
will there be cool screenings and stuff for us to go to? We want to come. We're
also like, these are, amazing theaters that can be used for all kinds of programmatic purposes. Our focus has really been on that kind of daytime use, which will be this open door film program. But of course, there's possibilities and opportunities for evening programs and special screenings.
I think you have to get out of here, but now that you're friends with the Midnight Boys, can you slide us some tickets?
Hit me up. No, we'll figure it out.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah,
appreciate
really
you,
great.
man.
Yeah.
Appreciate the work.
All right.